Let's do this. Okay, so just to let you know, I'm Miss T. I'm the college advisor at Hoover High School. It's the first year that Hoover has a college advisor. I work for USC College Advising Corps, and that's how I work at Hoover now. So if you have any college-related questions, financial aid questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll give my email towards the end, and you can reach out to me through there. So today, my partner in crime, Mr. Allen, who happens to be the senior counselor at Hoover High School, will be assisting me in terms of admitting people into the room and monitoring the chat box. Mr. Allen, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little more?
Hello, everyone. Like Ms. T said, I'm Mr. Allen, the senior counselor at Hoover High School. I see a lot of unfamiliar names, so I'm thinking there's a lot more people that are participating outside of Hoover, which is awesome. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Allen. Yeah, so we can go ahead and get started. So like I said, I'm Ms. T. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to ask in the chat, and I will try to stop every couple of slides so that Mr. Allen can read aloud the questions, and so that we can answer those questions as we go through the presentation instead of towards the end. So today's presentation is really about getting into the nitty-gritty parts of the financial aid and determining if you're eligible for going to college. And spoiler alert, you can afford college. So let's go ahead and dive into that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Awesome. Let's see some head nods. Okay, so can I afford college? That's a really big question. College is a scary thing, especially if it's your first time around. So I'm here to put that little voice in your head at ease and give you all the information necessary you need to know about how best to afford college. So how much does college really cost? That's the first question that pops in our heads. So this is a chance for us to practice a little bit right now. And we're gonna go through each of these colleges, and you're gonna answer a poll for me. So I just need to do that. Okay, so we're gonna start off with community colleges. And so you should have a poll that comes up in front of your screen. Feel free to read it out. It says, what is a community college tuition? So there are options there. There's $0, $500 to $700, $1,000 to $1,500, and $2,000, $3,000. So we'll give it a couple of seconds for people to get their answers in. About 5 more seconds. Okay, so we're gonna end the poll now. And here are your thoughts on it. So most of you said $1,000 to $1,500. So that's a really good guess. So let's go ahead and see if this is correct. So it was in that range, so close, but not too close. And so yes, the annual tuition for community colleges ranges anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000, breaking it down to $46 a unit. However, there is a new, really cool program that California has now, and it's called the College Promise. So for students who have never attended college before, their first 2 years are free, which is incredible. So I definitely encourage students to go the community college route if they feel like the university isn't really meant for them right now. If they're not really sure how to go about it, if they're not sure what they want to pursue, community college is a great place to start for saving money and getting those GEs down. So next one, we don't have a poll for this one, but it's the California State University. Does anyone want to have a guess of what the tuition is? The cost of attendance is $24,000, but the tuition is portion of that. So you guys can unmute yourselves if you want to just go ahead and say that, what you think it is. I see a lot of shaking heads like.
Excuse me.
3,000?
I just have a quick question. Does the California Promise money depend on income? So does it have a cap on how much income a family can make in a year for it to be available to the student?
The California Promise, it's not dependent on income. There are other factors that it is dependent on, such as residency status, such as you have to live in California for 3+ years to be eligible for it. There might be one more, but it's not based on income. No, I don't think it is.
Okay, thank you.
And do we have to like apply for it? Like, will we have to like fill out what is it called? Like a oh my god. Would we have to like fill out like a questionnaire, or like do like the counselors would give it, or we would have to ask the counselor?
So the way it works is that each community college has a different way of going about it. Some of them include it in their application, or others have an additional application you have to fill out, and then others do it during their orientation. So it really depends on each school. So if you have one in mind, you can definitely reach out to the school and see how that works. But typically, it's just a short kind of questionnaire that you would have to fill out after you've applied to the school, so that they can take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so earlier I heard something in the thousands for the CSU tuition, but here we go. So it's anywhere from $6,500 to $8,700. Really depends. It does change every year. Sometimes it goes up. Other years it does stay stagnant, but this is typically the tuition rate at a California State University per year. So we're going to do another poll for the UCs because this is a big one. Okay. So go ahead and answer the poll. It should have popped up right now. So what is UC's tuition? We have $3,000, $7,000, $10,000, and over $12,000. We'll give it a couple more seconds for people to have a chance of answering it. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll. And most of you said over 12,000, and that is correct. So UCs, let me go ahead and reshare my screen. So we did community college, CSUs. UCs cost about 12,000, a little over 12,000. And again, it ranges every year. Some years goes a little up. And that's out of a cost of attendance of about $34,000. That's including room and board, textbooks, basically every other thing that you would be doing at a university campus. And the last one we have private, so we don't have a poll for this one either. Just to let you know, the cost of attendance does vary at private schools, and the tuition is anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 a year. So this is definitely the one with the highest tuition rates. Are there any questions about tuition right now? Okay, so we can go ahead and move forward. So we tend to hear this phrase a lot, I got money from Fafsa, but to a lot of us that doesn't seem familiar. We've never been to college, we haven't been around people who have been to college, so that's a completely normal thought to have in your head. So it's, what is that? What is Fafsa and where does that money come from? So before we get into that, basic financial aid vocabulary that you would need to know for the rest of this presentation. There are two types of financial aid that you receive for attending a university. One of that would be money that does not have to be paid back. That means they give it to you, you use it, and that's it. These are included in scholarships and grants. On the other hand, there is money that does need to be paid back, which means that the government gives you temporary loan, and then there's a time span in which you have to pay that back to them, and typically with interest. So those are just basic knowledges that I want you to be aware of for the rest of the presentation. Now we go into FAFSA. So FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. You apply online your senior year, anywhere from when it opens, which is October 1st, until it closes, which is March 2nd. The interesting thing is that March 2nd is the priority deadline. Priority deadline is being considered for Pell Grant. And we'll go more into what Pell Grant is in the next slide, but just to let you know, it's additional money that you want to be considered for. So if you want to be considered for this additional financial aid, you have to turn in that application before March 2nd. In the case that you don't get it in on time, that you can still submit your FAFSA to receive alternative financial aid that doesn't include the Pell Grant. And I believe the deadline for that is somewhere in July. But I definitely encourage students to get that application in before March 2nd. All right, so there's different types of financial aid that we're going to be discussing. The first one is from the California state government, and this includes the Pell Grant, which is what I had just mentioned. So let's go ahead and get into that. So the Pell Grant is dispersed through the California state government, and it is based on your students' grades and the parent or guardian income. So two factors, it's the grades and the income. So for your general knowledge, there is 3 types of Pell Grants, but the 2 most popular ones are Pell Grant A and B. So if you receive a GPA between 2.0 to 2.99, you receive the Pell Grant B, and this is also dependent on the income, so keep that in mind. But more likely than not, you will be receiving Pell Grant B, which your first year, you would receive a $1,600 stipend, which is a living stipend. So you would be using this for anything having to do with college. It's not specifically for your tuition. In addition to that, the incoming 3 years, you would receive the additional amount of $5,700. Keep in mind that the $5,700 would be for a Cal State, and if you were to be attending a university, you'd be receiving the equivalent amount, which is $12,700, because the tuition rate is higher at a UC, so they need to compensate for that. So that would be for the remaining years. So just to let you know again, Pell Grant B, you receive a $1,600 stipend your first year, and then the remaining years you receive that stipend. In addition to that, you receive the school's equivalent tuition amount, which will go directly to the tuition. So that the school handles that. You can't use that money for anything else. In the case that your student or you receive a 3.0 to a 3.99 and your income levels match the Pell Grants, you would receive Pell Grant A, which at a CSU would be $5,700 and at a UC would be $12,700. So each of them are approximately the same amount. You'd be receiving the same amount. It's just dispersed throughout the years in a different way. So in summation, it does pay to get good grades. Does anyone have any questions about Pell Grant right now? Do you have any questions in the chat, Mr. Allen?
Yes, I do. And I was just answering back. One asked, is there any advantage to completing the FAFSA sooner And I was just responding saying that as long as you've met the March 2nd deadline, then you're 100% eligible to receive funds. It's as of right now, it's not a first come, first serve. So if you submit tonight versus someone who submits on March 2nd, that person on March 2nd is not going to be receiving any less funds than the person that submits tonight.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions about Pell Grant specifically? No? Okay, so we're moving on now.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so the next type of financial aid that you can receive is through the institution. So this is where the money comes from the college that you're going to be attending. So let's get into that. So institutional aid, how much money will the university give you? Well, the answer to that is that it does depend on each school, but this comes in amounts of loans or scholarships. So it can be a little bit of both. So like I said, it's hard to tell directly how much money you're going to receive because it is dependent on the school, but the lower your EFC is, so that's your estimated family contribution, you will receive that at the end of your financial aid application. Once you turn that in, you'll receive a confirmation email and they will include the EFC in this email. If your EFC is less than 0, then that means that you're probably going to be receiving a lot more aid, financial aid, to help you pay for your college. So that's where the university will also be helping you get that financial aid. So like I said, this money can come in the form of loans or scholarships, but keep in mind, this one thing that I want you to take away is private schools give the most amount of aid. That's the money they have. They're willing to give that away so that you can attend their college. But that slowly comes after, I mean, it's privates, then UCs, then CSUs give the least amount of institutional aid. Just keep in mind that if you get accepted to a private university, you also get accepted to a UC. I know that it sounds really cool that the private universities offering you $10,000 in scholarships for you to attend. It's a lot of money and that can help out a lot. But also keep in mind that their tuition per year ranges anywhere from $45,000 and up. So bringing your total tuition for that year to $35,000. That's just the tuition, that's not the cost of attendance. Whereas UC Irvine, let's say, offers you only $3,000 in scholarships, but their tuition for the entire year is $14,000. So you just want to keep that in mind, that it does sound like a large amount of money, and it really is, but in the bigger picture, how is that helping you? If you have the institutional aid to help you go to that private college so that it brings that cost of attendance down to $10,000, $15,000 a year, maybe 20, 25, that's great. But if you're starting at 45,000 and it only brings it down 10,000, you want to consider your alternative options as well. Are there any questions about that? Okay.
Ms. T, does the institution provide scholarship, as you said? Do they change the scholarship depending on how much money you get from the Fafsa money?
So let's say if you receive a lot of financial aid from Fafsa, is that dependent on how much institutional aid you'll receive?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So, but remember that if your EFC is lower, you're going to receive a lot of financial aid from Fafsa, but the institution's also going to help you out so that they can cover as much of the cost as possible so that you're not paying out of pocket more than you can. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like in the case that Fafsa covers your entire cost of attendance, the institutional aid might not be as high. But in the case that financial aid offers only 50% or 70%, institutional aid might kick in a little more.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So the last type of financial aid that we're going to go over comes from the federal government, meaning Washington, D.C., and this includes the Pell Grant. So the Pell Grant is dependent on the exceptional financial need based on family income, and you can receive up to $6,000 of free money per year. If you are eligible for the Pell Grant, you may also be eligible for the FSEOG, which is the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. This offers up to $4,000 of free money. Again, if you're eligible for the Pell Grant, you can be eligible for the FSEOG. You cannot be eligible for the FSEOG if you don't qualify for the Pell Grant. No, that's a mouthful, but I just wanted to get that out. And again, this is free money.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Was there a question?
So what makes you eligible for the Pell Grant again? Sorry.
Based on family income.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that's determined on the financial aid application, Fafsa. Okay, so again, that's free money. You don't have to pay that back. Next, we have loans. So this is the little more complicated part. So we are going to go into another slide for this. But before I do, Mr. Allen, are there any questions in the chat that we need to address out loud?
I'm just responding. The last question that was posted was if you apply for a Cal Grant and the federal grant separately. Yeah, so the question is, do you apply to the Cal Grant and the federal grant separately, or is it all in one process?
Yeah, so just to let everyone know, it's all one application. You're filling out the financial aid application and you're being considered for the state and federal money. And then when the institution that you choose gets your FAFSA, then they're going to determine whether or not they can offer you additional institutional aid. But you're only responsible for filling out one application, and then you're considered for all of the rest, everything that we're talking about right now.
Yes. So the other question was the same with the Pell Grant. So yes, the Pell Grant is a part of the FAFSA as well.
Yes, you have to complete the FAFSA to be considered for Pell Grant, for FSEOG, for Cal Grant, for the loans, anything. That's why it's so important to get it in on time. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it. You kind of addressed the last one was, to be considered for the federal grant versus the state aid. Again, those are both combined in the FAFSA application.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to federal student loans. So there are two types of loans that you can receive. The first is subsidized, which is on the left side. It's offered solely to undergraduate students, so students coming straight from high school, going into university for the first time. The U.S. Department of Education pays for the interest of this loan while you're attending school, at least part-time. And this extends until the first 6 months after graduation. This is known as the grace period. So you're not responsible for paying the interest on those loans or paying your loans off 6 months after graduation. Or during a period of deferment, which is a postponement of your loan payments. On the other hand, we have unsubsidized loans, which are offered to undergraduates and graduates. So these are students going back to school after their bachelor's to receive their master's or doctorate. So you are responsible for paying the interest on these loans from the moment that you accept them. That means that the interest is accruing while you're in school. Whereas subsidized loans, the interest is accruing, but you're not paying that. The government is paying that. And I'll go more into detail about that in the next slide.
So, just really quickly, I just want to interject, tell you, for myself, when I was in school and I was looking at loans, one of the things that I got confused on was the subsidized and unsubsidized, which one was being the interest was being covered by the government, which one that I had to pay for. So what I did was that the unsubsidized starts with the letter U and un. So which means you are eligible or you are responsible for the interest, versus the subsidized, the state or the government, S as in subsidized, takes that. So that was a little device that I did that kind of separated the two. So unsubsidized starts with the letter U, which stands for you are responsible for the interest. So just kind of want to throw that out there.
Awesome. I haven't heard that before. That's amazing, Mr. Allen. Yeah, I would definitely use that tool. So you are responsible for paying them, paying the interest that's accruing, and subsidized is the state is paying for you. So again, so your interest is accruing for unsubsidized loans, where it's accumulating while you're attending school, and then your interest will be added to the principal amount of your loan once you graduate. My advice, I am a college advisor, so my advice is that you try to pay parts of your unsubsidized loan while you're in school. So I know that's overwhelming to think about, but whether that's $20 a month, $100 a month, however much you can chip in, so that you're chipping away at that interest so that it becomes less and less, because by the time that you graduate, that interest is going to be low, so that when it's added to your principal amount, it's not like a bigger amount than you were expecting. So that's my personal advice. I didn't do that for my undergraduate, so that's why I know people that have, and it really did help them. So in the next slide, just a more visual thing for you guys to compare the subsidized and unsubsidized. Again, subsidized loans, interest doesn't increase, that you're not responsible for the interest while you're in school. And unsubsidized, you are responsible for paying that interest because it's accruing from the moment that you accept that loan. I know it's a little confusing, but does anyone have questions about subsidized and unsubsidized loans?
There is one question. Okay. How much should a family income cost? I'll go ahead and address this one in the chat. So no, so no questions about subsidized as of right now in the chat, but the one question I have, I would just go ahead and address it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Taya, just spoke too soon. How can we get subsidized loan over an unsubsidized loan?
So unfortunately, that's not something in our control. That's just the arithmetic, the algorithm that the financial aid comes up with, like the financial aid, oh my goodness, like Fafsa itself, when they're determining how much aid you get, is how they determine how much subsidized and unsubsidized you get. So there's no way of increasing your chances of getting subsidized loans, but typically it ranges anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 or a little above. And unsubsidized is always offered a little more. So if subsidized, they offer $2,500, unsubsidized, they might offer you $3,500. Again, and just to let you know, you don't have to accept all your loans. You can pick and choose what you want to accept. If you don't need those loans in the end, you don't have to accept them. Yeah. Okay. All right, so essentially there is money for you to go to college. So it's important to be educating yourself on the different types of financial aid that you can receive, but this is the order in which you want it most. So there's free money, which is grants and scholarships. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, but scholarships, you should continually be applying for scholarships. You can apply from your junior year to your senior year to your freshman year of college, whatever, whenever, because there's always going to be scholarships out there that apply to you directly and that you're eligible for. So continually apply to those scholarships. Deadlines range for each scholarship, so you do have to look into that. and obviously what they require. Some of them are a simple application, others require a letter of recommendation, and others require you to write an essay. But you want free money, which is scholarships and grants. There's earned money, which I want to introduce now, is work study. Work study is another type of financial aid that you will be asked if you'd like to receive in your FAFSA. There's a question, I think it's pretty early on in the application. It asks if you'd like to be considered for work study. So work study is a certain amount of money that the financial aid that the government sets aside for you, and you'd have to work to achieve that. So you would find a job on campus, and they say, let's say they say that they cap out at $2,500. You have $2,500 of work study money. So if you find a job on campus, and if you prove to us that you're working in there, you're eligible to receive up to $2,500 for that semester or that year, whatever it may be. And just to let you know, companies on campus or work job opportunities are more likely to take on students who have work study, because that money is coming directly from the federal government, not from them. So that's why they want to take on students with work study. I advise students to answer yes to this question on the FAFSA, because it gives you the opportunity to accept this money, but in the case that you choose against it, you can always reject it in the end, but at least you're still considered. Because you need to keep in mind, if you say no from your first time, you're not going to be asked again next year, or there's a lower chance of them asking you again next year. But if you answer yes and then don't take it, they're going to ask again every year because they know you're interested in it. And then the last type is borrowed money. So that's the loans. That's money that you have to pay back. So that's why it's third on the list, but you still want it because they're going to be paying for your education while you may not be able to. Any questions about federal student aid?
Okay, so question, the first one wanted to know if the jobs are on campus or off campus. Actually, the majority of them are on campus. I can just let you know that I was a product of a student worker, and it was an amazing experience, mostly because the school that you're working for, the department that you're working for on the school, understands that you're a student. So you're a student first. So if you have a semester where you're taking classes all in the morning or the afternoon, then they'll schedule you for hours in the evening. If that switches from one semester to the next or one quarter to the next, then they will adjust that schedule without giving you any grief about that. So that's the part that's amazing, and it gives you a chance to kind of be exposed to other departments and other degrees and other people on the campus. So I can't say enough great things about being a student worker. It's just an amazing experience. The next question was, can you circle back to address income for thresholds? I'm sorry. Okay, can you circle back to the income thresholds for grant money, Pell Grants, etc.?
This one?
Yeah.
So federal government money, that's Pell Grant, FSCOG, and loans, they're all dependent on your family's income, what you report on the FAFSA. There is a list of, I believe, like a threshold for each income and what you'd be eligible for. I don't have it on hand, but if you'd like to know, you can email me. I'll provide my email and I'll look it up for you and I can send it to you. Does that kind of answer?
So the next one was for work study. For work study was, okay, the question was, okay, for work studies, there was a don't know option. Does that exclude you from work studies? So I guess,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, no, just to clarify the question, it sounds like, I guess there was an option that says you don't know, and they're afraid if they click that, would that exclude them from being able to do work study in the future?
No, I believe if you select don't know, they will still ask you the following year. I think it's strictly when you say no that they won't. But like I said, I always advise students to just click yes. There's no hindrance in putting yes because it's ultimately up to you. They're going to make the offer. If you're eligible, they're going to make the offer. And if you, you can either accept it or reject it at that point. It's completely up to you. But at least you have that option.
Correct. One question was, where do you go to do work study? And that is basically the financial aid office. When you said yes, they'll bring you in and they'll talk to you and they'll give you a list of departments or places that are open. It's everywhere from, like, you know, some gyms have campuses, they have food courts. Every campus has different offices, counseling office, administration offices, records office, and they all hire student workers in those offices. So they'll give you a choice. The other question was that if you reject it, will they give you another chance to ask? And that answer is yes, as you were saying, like if you rejected this particular semester, the following semester, you can say that yes, you do want it. You can always go back to the financial aid office and say to them that you want to accept it and see what they can do for you.
Yes, but in the case that you receive the work study money and you reject it for this year, it'll still show up on your application for the following year, and you can still say yes that you'd like to be considered for it. And again, it'll show up on your portal that year, and then you can decipher whether or not you'd like to accept it. Any other questions for now, Mr. Allen?
Yeah, there's a few more here. If you already have a job, should you not apply for work study, or can your current job apply as work study? No, your current job is not, because it's a private entity. Work study is exclusively with the school. It depends on your caseload or your workload or how much you're doing. I mean, if you feel like you can handle 2 jobs at once, there's no rule about having a job on campus and your regular job. It's just something that you just need to be mindful about. You're a freshman, you're going in, it could be overwhelming. And then if you're trying to balance 2 different jobs at the same time, then that's something that might be overwhelming. If you have a job where you're basically working from home, or say you're helping your family and they can adjust the hours and make things more flexible, then yeah, of course you can still apply. The next one wanted to know how they can contact you in order to get family income guidelines.
Yes, so I will provide my email at the end of the presentation, and you guys can contact me that way.
Okay, I think that's, unless I missed one, you can always repost and then I can catch it again.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We're right about done. So I just want to get through the next couple of slides and then we can continue on with the questions. So there's also an alternative financial aid application specifically for non-citizens or undocumented citizens. It's essentially the same thing as the Fafsa, but it's called the CADA, which is the California Dream Act application. So this financial aid application is for non-citizens, meaning undocumented citizens, undocumented students, U visa holders, valid or expired DACA holders, and TPS, which is temporary protected status. So if you fit in any of those categories, you would fill out the California Dream Act, and you would simply write in California Dream Act onto Google and the link should pop up. The opening date and deadline are the same as FAFSA. So October 1st is the opening date and priority deadline is March 2nd. The only difference is that CADA students will not be considered for Cal Grant or, sorry, not Cal Grant, but they won't be considered for federal aid, such as the Pell Grant or the loans, but they will be considered for everything else, such as Cal Grant and institutional aid and outside scholarships, which is why we encourage students to always apply for scholarships. Any questions about the California DREAM Act?
None on the chat right now.
Okay. Alrighty. Next, we have expected family contribution. I had mentioned this earlier. So when you turn in your FAFSA or your CADA, within the next 2, 3, 4 days, you will receive a confirmation email from them saying that they've received it. And they've done like a rough draft breakdown of your application, and they've seen from the numbers that you provided that your EFC is something. So EFC, expected family contribution, which is the amount of money the government calculates that the student and the family could contribute toward the student's education for the next year. So this is based on the responses that you provided on the FAFSA and CADA. It is just a rough draft of it. The EFC determines the types and amounts of federal and state aid that the student qualifies or is qualified to receive through this. So they do an even more detailed breakdown of your EFC, and they see how many other kids you might have that are attending college, how many individuals there are in your household. So these are all very important questions that are going to be asked on the financial aid application and that they will be considering in terms of coming up with your EFC. But just know that if you have less than a 0 on your EFC when you receive that email, it's a good sign that you will be receiving a lot of financial aid. So the question remains, can I afford a college? And the answer is absolutely. So I don't want financial aid being a reason for students not to attend college, because there's always ways around it. In the case that you don't receive enough financial aid to attend a university, there's always CSUs who will have a lower tuition rate. In the case that you can't afford that and they didn't give you enough money for that, there's always community college and then transferring out. So there's always ways around it. So that's why we got to start planning early for college, getting that FAFSA started early, that CADA started early. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. I'm going to be putting my email in the chat right now. All right. So are there any other questions that we didn't get around to during the presentation?
What?
The PowerPoint won't be accessible, but this recording will be. I will be sharing it with Ms. Makijan, and she will be posting it on the college and career website, hopefully. If you're a Hoover student, I will be posting it on all of our platforms there as well.
There was one last question, just says, how long does it take to get the EFC determination?
Yes, it takes about 3 to 5 days after you've submitted your application for them to send you that confirmation, and they will include the EFC in there. Any other questions?
When doing the FAFSA application, does it include being considered for the California Promise Grant?
That's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. You have to fill out the financial aid application to be considered for California Promise Grant. So whether that's an additional application that you have to fill out afterward, depending on the school that you're going to be attending, originally they're all going to ask you to complete the FAFSA, whether or not you've turned it in before or after the March 2nd deadline. You have to turn that in prior to being considered for the California Promise.
What expenses does FAFSA cover?
I'm so sorry, you like fast forwarded through that. I think my internet broke out for a second, but can you please repeat the question?
Yeah. What expenses does FAFSA cover?
FAFSA? Oh, okay. It could cover, I mean, it depends on the type of financial aid you get. So like I had mentioned, Cal Grant A covers your tuition directly. Cal Grant B gives you a living expense and the following years covers your tuition. Your loans you can use towards your tuition or any other living expenses, anything that you need for college. Scholarships are up to you. It's pocket money for you, so you can use that how you wish. Pell Grant is federal aid, I believe, is towards your tuition if Cal Grant doesn't cover it, but I believe you can use it for whatever else you need if your tuition's already covered. I hope that answered the questions.
you. Yeah, I did. Thank you.
No problem.
I had one more question. So when you like apply for like the scholarships and all of that, can you do it through like, let's say you want to go to community college for the first 2 years, can you still apply for those during community college? That way, when you want to transfer to university, like you can have those, or?
So are you saying in the case that you want to go to community college, like do you fill out the FAFSA?
Yeah.
Yes, so you fill out the FAFSA regardless if you're going the community college route or any other university route, because you will get something out of it. And again, if you want that California Promise, that first 2 years free, you have to fill out that FAFSA application. I also wanted to mention that the Cal Grant, in the case that you receive the Cal Grant and you attend a community college, it is advised to put your Cal Grant on hold. If you receive Cal Grant A, it's already going to be on reserve until you transfer. If you want to receive that money, you would have to reach out to the California Student Aid Commission and have them take that off hold so that you can get it. But Cal Grant B gives you that living expense that first year, that's first $1,600. However, I do advise putting that on hold, because once you begin your Cal Grant, once you accept it, once you use it, you can only use that for the Cal Grant eligibility, which is 4 years. So in the case that your graduation takes more than 4 years, or your bachelor's takes more than 4 years, after that, you're not going to be eligible for Cal Grant anymore. So that's why we say hold off on the Cal Grant if you're going to be attending community college for the first 2-3 years. And then once you transfer out, you can take it off reserve and then use it, because it's a lot more expensive at the university. And that way you have more years to use it. Did that answer your question, Christina?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
See, we do have one more question. Okay. If you are going to a community college to complete your GE classes and then your college degree, when do you apply for scholarships, or after you've completed all or most of your classes in a community college? You can apply for a scholarship anytime. There's so many different types of scholarships. basically it's the eligibility. If you are eligible for the type of scholarship, you can apply anytime. So there's scholarships that are for students that come from a certain income, that are of a certain ethnicity, that have a left hand. I mean, like, and I'm like not joking, like there's like legitimately a scholarship probably for everything. You know, for someone that wears a size 12 shoe, like it's just that broad. And as long as you can fit the eligibility requirements, some of them are more straightforward that yes, you have to be a certain age and a certain student and going for a certain major, but there's others that are like, if you're left-handed, there's a left-handed scholarship. There's ones that if you come from Missouri, you can get a Missouri scholarship. So there, as long as you are eligible, you're more than welcome to apply.
Miss T, so is it recommendable to do a work study as a freshman?
I definitely recommend doing work study. Not only does it get you immersed on campus and you make a lot of friends and socialize, but obviously post-COVID, but I think it's also a great way to get that money, that extra money that you need, and you can use that towards anything. It's not limited to tuition or housing, whatever. You can use it for everything.
If you apply for a scholarship, is that scholarship reserved until you go to school or have to pay for a tuition, basically?
So scholarships are pocket money for you. So you get to choose how you want to use that. If you submit a scholarship and you receive $1,000, if you're the contestant and you win, you choose how to use that. I'm not sure if there are specific scholarships that are only for certain parts of your college experience, such as tuition. I don't think so. But yeah, you can use them how you wish. You can put it in your savings and you can just hold off on using it until you transfer out of community college. You can use it right away. You can use it for living expenses, whatever it may be.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And Ms. Lilit Maksudian just posted a scholarship website on the chat, so I definitely recommend checking that out.
Miss T, so on the FAFSA application, is it okay to have like a variety of colleges on it, like UC, CSU, privates, and community colleges? Or is it preferred to just have like a specific set or just like top 2, top 3?
So on the college portion of the financial aid application, you have to report all the schools that you're applying to, whether that's community college, private, CSU, or UC. You have to report all of them because that's the only way that the school is going to receive your financial aid application and determine how much institutional aid they can give to you if you're accepted. And just for general knowledge, everyone, there's a limit of 10 schools that you can put on the college portion of the financial aid application. In the case that you apply to more than 10 schools, once you've submitted your application for the first 10, a couple of days later, you would log back into your account, log back into your application, go ahead and remove however many schools you need, and then add in the remainder that you need, and then you would resubmit it. But you would give it a couple of days for them to process the first one, and then you can resubmit.
If on the FAFSA application you don't list a certain school, but later decide you want to apply to it anyway, is that okay? Or do you have to go back and add the school and then submit it?
So you can edit the application at any point, even after the March 2nd deadline. You would just, if you choose that you wanted to apply to this school and you hadn't originally applied, you would just go in and add that school and then resubmit. You can do that however many times you need to do.
Would it make a difference though? Is that a requirement?
You just need to keep in mind, if you want to be considered for financial aid for that school, you have to add them in.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Miss T, just to be clear, you're saying that we can resubmit the FAFSA application even after the deadline?
Correct. So as long as you get that initial submission before March 2nd, you're going to be considered for Pell Grant. In the case that you need to make any edits to your application after that, you can go ahead and make those changes, and that'll be fine.
Thank you.
Earlier, there was a question about the Pell Grant threshold. I found online that if your family has an adjusted gross income of $26,000 or less, your EFC is calculated at 0, and you can qualify for the maximum amount of Pell Grant funding for no more than $6,195 a year of, per attendance year. Not sure who had asked that question, but I just want to let you guys know.
Miss Tim, let's say the student is doing the work study on the first year or whichever year. Does the money that the student receives from this work affect the grants, the FAFSA, or other scholarships? I mean, if she gets any income, does this changes the other help that she can get?
So you're saying if your financial aid, like the amount of financial aid you receive will change based on the amount of scholarships you've received, or however much you've received?
Not exactly. What I mean, when the student starts working, it's immediately report or is on the record as an income, I suppose. So then this income will change the help from FAFSA, grant, scholarships that the student receives.
No, not necessarily, because the students, whatever income they're making or generating, is not going to be exceeding the amount in which they would not receive any more financial aid. They're going to be below the threshold. I believe it's like if they make less than $10,000 a year, then it's not going to affect their application, or it's not going to affect the financial aid that they would be receiving. I don't know if that was your question.
Yes, that was. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Oh, that's a good question. So the Pell Grant you would use on a year-to-year basis. And it's not like it, if you don't use it if you don't use it the year that you get it, it's not gonna roll into the next year. So that's pocket money for you, unless, I don't think it's for tuition. I think you can use it for whatever you need, any expenses that you need, including tuition, fees, room and board, and other educational expenses. You can use the Pell Grant for that. So just make sure that you don't leave it in your account. You accept it, and they can either mail you a check form, or it would go directly into your portal. However it may be, you would figure that out with the financial aid office at your school, but don't not use it.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
I'm new to this whole recording thing. Is chat recorded as well alongside video, or is it just the video and audio?
I would have to check the settings that I have on this specific recording. I'm not sure if I included the chat in it.
All right.
If you want to save the chat, you can just copy and paste it into a Word document or somewhere safe. That way you can have the entire chat saved.
Sure, I can do that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Could you potentially make pocket money without doing work study? Can you elaborate Or Mr. Allen answered that. Never mind.
Yeah, so you said earlier that whenever with the work study, if you do apply for it, you work and then you earn the scholarship money. So is there a possible way where you apply for FAFSA, you say that you can't do work study, but also get enough financial aid to pay for your college or university and have extra money that you earn as well, such as pocket money?
So that's dependent on your, like, that's dependent on everything, on your income, your GPA, everything in the financial aid application. So I'm sure there is a way that you can, there are students that receive more financial aid than they need. And it's not loans, like a lot of it is scholarships from the institution or outside scholarships, or just grants that the university offers, that federal aid offers, state aid, everything. So it is possible to get pocket money without doing work study, but I definitely encourage my students to select the yes option for work study, and definitely encourage them to do it if they can, because it is a great experience to have. And again, you're working for that money and you're getting money, but it feels like you're working for it. You are working for it.
Is it only for the work study, if you were to do it, is it only enough money to pay for whatever you need for your college tuition, or is it more than that, so you have pocket money at the end as well?
Well, so work study you can use for whatever you want. It's not going straight to your tuition. You can use work study as you please, as you would with any other job. It's just going pocket money for you, and you can decide how to use that. Is that what that, did I answer your question, Sharon?
Yeah, thank you.
These are great questions, by the way. Please keep them coming.
Is work study currently available, even though the pandemic is still in fruition?
I'm sure it is. There's probably different ways of going about it, or they have like new restrictions such as just wearing masks, because there are a lot of individuals still working on campus, in offices and whatnot. So I'm sure it's still happening.
I did a work study before, and I worked at a department. So they just had me making copies or collating or something, and that's something you could do outside of, on a separate room, and they still do that. I've heard. They hire extra help for the offices, for the professors.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Lorna. Are there any?
On the
Oh, sorry.
Were you gonna say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. On the FAFSA application where we're listing colleges, does the order of which we list them matter?
No, not at all. You can submit them.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but can you explain to me again how or where we can find this this recording?
Recording. I will be submitting the recording to the CTE, the GUST CTE advisor, Narina Makijan, and she can upload it onto the College and Career website for GUSD. Is that correct? The website that I'm talking about? Yeah. So the same page that you go to
sign up for this website, this workshop.
for this website or any other college rep visits, it's the same website. It would be downloaded there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And we have a comment from Miss Anna Margarian saying that Clark students, we will post this in the Clark Counselor's Corner. So they'll probably get it from the website and add it there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, I do have a question. Are there any other grants besides the ones we discussed here?
There are additional grants. Some of them are given in institutional aid form. So dependent on what university you're attending and dependent on all the factors that we discussed, they'll be giving you some grants. So it depends, the names differ from each school. But yeah, there are other grants to get aside from the Cal Grant.
And how do I find out? From the school that my child will be attending, from the university that she would be attending?
Yes, so once she is accepted to the school, she will receive a financial aid breakdown or a financial aid award letter. And then you would log into the portal and you would see all the financial aid that she'd be receiving or that she's eligible to receive. And then you would accept or reject those that financial aid through there.
Thank you.
Of course.
Miss T, do you think you can go back to the slide presentation where you had all the tuition prices listed?
Tuition prices for each school?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Miss T. We don't have more questions on our side, but it was very helpful this meeting. Thank you so much.
Of course, anytime. Thank you so much for attending for everyone. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, if there are no more questions, I think we can close out. If you have any questions that come to mind after the presentation, feel free to email me. I did put my email in the chat earlier, but I'll just go ahead and put it one more time. But thank you for everyone who attended. I really hope it was helpful. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for helping and Lilith for contributing. But yeah, stay tuned. We do have more presentations coming up. Ms. Lilith and I will actually be presenting tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 about a best fit for me, and that is district-wide as well, and it is on the College and Career website, so you can register for it if you haven't already. And we're going to be discussing the different college options, the requirements for each one, and just spotlighting some schools that maybe you have or haven't heard of, but just giving some details about those. So highly recommend attending if you haven't signed up yet.
Thank you.
Of course. Bye, everyone. Any questions here?
Thank you very much. It was very informative. Thank you.
Of course, anytime. Thank you so much for attending.
Yeah.
Any last questions?
Ms. T, I have to take off.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Mr. Allen. Have a great rest of your evening.
Okay, no problem. Always good to see you, Lilith. All
Bye.
right.
Good seeing you.
All right.
Christina, Diane, and Claudine, do you guys have any questions for us?
I am okay too. Thank you so much for your help. That was very helpful. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too.